dream was the day before the earthquake in Southern California, and then I had 2 dreams in a row, and I knew I couldn't put my finger on what the dream was about, the contents, but it had to do with blood, and the second one, it had to do with blood and a friend of mine, and that same day he got in an accident. His truck hit a buck, and a deer, and so it seems to me that, I know I'm having these experiences, and I've been writing down just everything. My journal has become my best friend here. And
I'm afraid we're going to get cut off, and I want to comment on what you're saying, Janet.
Okay.
Is it okay to
Sure.
jump in here?
Pardon?
Because, see, what you're talking about is the relationship between these encounters and certain psychic powers. That's
Yes.
very often reported. That is, that people who have these encounters discover that they have mental abilities that they didn't have before. They have information about what's going on around them. They anticipate tragedies sometimes. They can perceive other people's experiences more sharply. And it sometimes scares them to discover they have these powers.
Definitely scary.
Okay, we've got another call. Let's go to Fritz in Phoenix, Arizona. Thanks very much, Janet. It was a good call. Thanks very much. Fritz in Phoenix. Fritz, you're on the air.
Good evening, Whitley. Excellent program. Dr. Mack, you have survived one of the greatest witch hunts in modern psychiatry, organized by some of your colleagues because of ignorance and fear of the unknown. Now, for those old cronies of yours, they were afraid to face reality. They wanted to shoot the messenger. Dr. Mack, all I have to say is focus on the younger upcoming doctors, pass the torch to them so they can usher in the truth and the understanding that the visitors have arrived.
Well, you're very kind. I appreciate your comment very much, and I don't think it was quite as... I never have felt it's quite as severe what I went through as some people say. I kind of understand how a mainline, mainstream American institution, like Harvard Medical School would react to one of their professors giving credit to something that must, at least in several years ago, it must have seemed just absolutely outlandish to them. And but I'm a clinician, and that's my main work. And I didn't expect this to be true, but I began to see these people, and they're very healthy people mentally, by and large, and they're telling the truth as far as I could say. The only problem was that what they were saying isn't supposed to be possible. Well, I decided to stick with what seemed like truthfulness rather than worry about what we're supposed to think is possible or real or not,
Well, you're the messenger, and keep up the good work, because a lot of work has to be done yet. America is somehow still asleep. Of course, the audience on Coast to Coast and Dreamland is very consciously aware of this, but the rest of them have to be woken up, and you're doing a fantastic job, Whitley and Dr. Mack.
Thanks for your call.
Thanks very much, Fritz. It's much appreciated. Well, John, we're coming up close to the end of the program, and if there's something, and I know there will be, because I know you, that you want to leave the listeners with, what is it?
I don't know. I just think it's, it's a lot less frightening to be in a universe that's filled with unknowns, where we don't have control, where there might be something magnificent ahead of us, than to think that we're in a universe that is only material things, and that it stops at the border of our skin, in the sense of that our intelligence stops there. In other words, to be connected beyond ourselves seems to me to be a much more exciting universe than the one that I was raised in, which was that there was no intelligence that wasn't a projection of the human brain. So I think to be open to these kind of experiences, even if they are frightening, is a lot more interesting than closing ourselves off.
Especially because if you stay open to them, I mean, they get less frightening, in fact, and much richer. Although I hasten to add, I know that this experience is a really terrifying experience, and that gets me to this idea. If they are aliens, it would seem, if we went to another planet and we found intelligent creatures there, the first thing we would do two things. One, we would be very secretive, and because we would not want to interrupt their culture, we would want to study it and to learn from it and to find what it had to give us before it became totally directed toward us. But then we would want to understand them, and to do that, you go to the genetic material and the sexual material.
Well, they have a lot of trouble. I mean, they often say that they don't understand us. They particularly don't seem to understand our aggressiveness. They don't understand why we have this incredibly beautiful planet and opportunities, and yet we act in such a destructive way. They seem very puzzled about human destructiveness.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Tuesday, this coming Tuesday night, November the 16th at 7 p.m., the New York Academy of Medicine. Dr. Mack at 5th Avenue and 103rd Street in New York City. Dr. Mack is going to be there. To reserve tickets, 212-459-4570. That's 212-459-4570. We've had an extraordinary experience with Dr. Mack tonight. Have an extraordinary experience with him next Tuesday night. This is Whitley Strieber. Will Hilliard is our producer-engineer with Mike Kincaid, Jason Gonzalez here in San Antonio. Ann Strieber is the producer of this program. Thank you and good night.